The anime began with a vibe different from the anime that we have previously covered. OSU warriors were seen heading to the battlefield with great enthusiasm as if heading to a party. Their leader Date Mamuni, with high spirits, assured them they were going to defeat their opponents. He descended from atop and landed at the battlefield. Sonata Yukimura, a warrior also known as a young tiger from the T clan, also arrived at the battlefield with great violence, according to the narrator, an era when the land was fraught with revolution. From the onset, the warlords quickly swept through the country with each conquest. The Japanese thumbs were rapidly painted, a new Lord Nagamas, another warlord from the Aii clan, and a defender of justice pronounced that it was his duty to defeat evil in the name of justice. Ecchi, his wife who was bowing behind him, agreed with his words. Another warlord from Mori was seen, the devil of Onigashima of Chaok Kam. Also was seen Ieyasu from Tokugawa came in view, and lastly, Mitsuhide. Aichi from Oda's clan was seen, and he had slaughtered many soldiers. Sasuke, a ninja of the T clan, reported to their leader, Tiada, that the Wugi soldiers were as he had suspected. Ninjas are messengers with the ability to fly in the sky and possess special power. To fight in battles, Tada, also known as Tiger of Kai, ordered Yukimura, the boy he had trained, to take his squad and attack the Wugi soldiers led by Lord Kenshin at night. But Yukimura declined, saying it was the custom of Tada to attack in full frontal assault and not secretly at night. The leader gave him a punch and corrected him that the correct offensive strategy depends on the battle. Yukimura stood up and reminded him that he and Lord Kenshin were rivals, and if he ordered a sneak attack in the middle of the night, his honor would diminish. The leader gave him another punch and told him he did that because he was his rival and he would eliminate the soldiers in general, thus forcing Kenshin to retreat. This strategy is called the woodpecker strategy. The leader assumed that if the strategy failed, then he would accept in the afterworld that it was a poor strategy. Yukimura stood up and told his master that he was going to risk his life. On the strategy, Sasuke asked the leader why he didn't tell Yukimura about the real purpose of the mission. Kasuga, a ninja to Lord Kisen, came to report to Lord Kenshin, the leader of Wugi soldiers, that the one-eyed dragon of OSU was behind their forces and he was catching up with them already. He asked Kasuga to order the soldiers at the northernmost point to fight them vigorously until they were all dead. She also reported that one of T's squadrons had taken a different route and they were planning to attack them there at Mount Sao. She added that they were planning a surprise night attack. Lord Kenshin ordered his soldiers to prepare for battle, and their target would be the tiger of Kaikajuru, a friend to the one-eyed dragon Date, and the one who acts as his right eye since Date had lost his right eye in battle. Kajuru advised Date to halt the army and send a scout ahead to Mount Saijo because he had a bad feeling that their enemies were waiting for them. Date told him it's not a big deal if they were on guard, and then he hurried ahead of them. When they reached Mount Sao, they couldn't find Lord Kenshin's soldiers there anymore. Date assumed they must have already left to battle Tata, or it might be a trap for them. Yukimura and his soldiers also arrived at the scene, and they found out that the Lord Kenshin soldiers were not there, but Date's soldiers were there. Yuk was surprised to find him there. Date asked Yukimura to retreat since he wasn't going after them, but the Wugi soldiers, Yukimura, decided to have a duel with Date. The fire went out, and they began to fight. Yukimura scratched Date's helmet, but still the duel continued intensely. Lord Kenshin had arrived at where Tiger of Kai was, and they both watched as the lightning and flame went up from where Date and Yukimura were fighting Tiger of Kai. Assumed the lengthy preparations Yukimura had was to confront Date one day. Since he was a great warrior, Lord Kenshin said the battle's outcome was unpredictable. The battle was still ongoing between Date and Yukimura. Date took out his six claws, and he stopped Yukimura's spear with it. Seeing that the duo wouldn't stop, Sasuke came in between them and asked them to stop, so Date could go on his way. Said the Wugi army would be joining them soon, and that would be unfavorable to them. Kajuru advised Date that they retreat in order not to lose their soldiers. Yukimura, after Date had gone, sensed that his heart was burning. He commended Date's strength and fighting spirit. Date on his way also thought of Yukimura. Tiger of Kai told Yukimura he had predicted Date's surprise attack. And likewise Lord Kenzan, which made him stay on the mountaintop for so long. T then revealed that he assumed if Yukimura was able to stop Date's invasion, then it would justify him sending Yukimura there, though he didn't tell him the mission in detail since it was part of a general job to deal with unexpected situations. Then Yukimura realized that it was atrial that he had to confront Date. He felt sad that he was not unable to accomplish the task, and if not because Sasuke interfered, he would have returned unharmed. TAA asked if Dark was that strong, and Yukimura replied that he was very strong enough to shake his soul. Sasuke came and reported that there were warriors present around Imagawa, and it looks like they are trying to interfere with Oda, who was after Date. Tada said he was expecting that, and told them they would be heading to Imagawa for battle. Kajuru lamented that they were unable to defeat Lord Kenshin and the Tiger of Kai because they ended up in the wrong battle. Date asked Kajuru if he stopped the battle because he thought he would lose, but he answered that he only took into consideration what Sasuke said and had perceived that if the fight continued, one of them, if not both, might die. Keiju said the Imagawa would soon withdraw their troops, since they had been attacked endlessly by other thumbs headed, that he suspected that Teada would be the first to try and save the Imagawa. Kajuru suggested it might be interesting to run ahead of Tata and capture Imagawa. Date then agreed they do that. The Hojo's army, who were also involved in the battle, on hearing that Date was coming, became restless. The Hojo quickly retreated, while the Teada army was still on their way to Imagawa. They saw the Date's army suddenly descend from atop and hurried ahead of them. Tiger of Kai asked Yukimura and some of the Soas to hurry after Date and stop him from taking Imagawa, while he and the other soldiers fought the Hojo's army they encountered on their way. Yukimura then realized they were also using the woodpecker strategy. Date determined he was going to take Imagawa. Head narrator narrated that it was an era of wearing states and rival warlords. Warriors all over the country bellowed. Battle cries. One was led by a wild spirit, another was aflame with high ideals, yet another sought to defend justice and pride, still others were simply aiming for new and unseen heights. Lord Kenshin told Kasuga that they did not fight Tida because they were trying to avoid sacrificing soldiers. In a three-way battle also, Yukimura, the young Tiger of Kai, gained a worthy rival, the one-eyed Dragon Day, and they made Teada pleased because few men were able to find such a rival in their short lives. Kasuga said Teada would be preparing to attack Imagawa, and if they attack at that moment, no other warlords should be able to attack their base, nor should any be able to attack them from behind. Kasuga suggested that Lord Kenshin attacked the Tida army at that moment, but Kenshin said he rather loved to attack. Tier and square with body and soul and all he wished for was a lasting peace in Ichigo. Lord Kenshin moved closer to Kasuga and instructed her to investigate T's strategy and status of the surrounding warlords. Furthermore, she should look into Oda of Ari Province, specifically Lord Yoshimoto, a sleepyhead and foodie, who happened to be the lord of the Imagawa soldiers. He was on his way to the battlefield with his soldiers. One of the soldiers reported to him in his carriage that they were in the middle of the battle already. As they were being approached from behind by Date's army, Shimoto became really scared and almost wanted to kill the soldier who came to report to him and accused him of not reporting earlier. The Imagawa soldiers were surrounded by Date's army, and Date flew in the sky, and all arrows shot at him. He dodged without one hitting him. Yoshimoto fell off, and Date came close to him, saying he was going to cut off his head. Yoshimoto stood up and began Toran, and then he hid behind his carriage. Date, with all surprise, said he should be fighting as the lord of the soldiers. Yukimura arrived at the scene and ordered Date to stop as he could not allow him to kill Yoshimoto. Date promised to have the head of the Tiger of Kai one day, but Yukimura told him his leader would never lose, no matter the opponent. Date proposed that they both have a duel for the head of Yoshimoto. The duo fiercely confronted each other, again releasing lightning and flame tiger of Kai after they had defeated the Hojo's army, announced that they were going to attack the Odawara castle of the Hojo's army. When he arrived at the castle, he met their lord, with Sama awaiting him by the entrance of the castle tiger. Of Kai said he wanted to consider allying with Hojo, since the country was at war Ujis. Sama asked why he was attacking them. If he really intended to ally with them, he said he fought them because he didn't see him at the head of his forces, Ujis. Sama became angry on hearing that and promised Noon would take their castle. A legendary ninja, Fumakotaro, suddenly pointed hisward towards T's eye, but Teada was able to defend himself. Ujis, Sama made fun of him and promised him he was going to die in front of their castle. The fight between Date and Yukimura continued, and still remains intense. Yoshimoto quiver as he watched them had a contest for his life. Yoshimoto suddenly stood up and then ordered his soldier to bring out his body double. Vanguard was planning to charge in for Oda's head. He said if he could demonstrate a military achievement to Oda by defeating Date, then he would be able to convince him about Asakura. Nagami decided to go in battle with Date and later go to Asakura to persuade them. Mitsui decided to report what he said. To Oda, Nagamai announced to his soldiers that they would be heading out to meet the one-eyed dragon Date. Mamuni Teada asked Yukimura to follow him. One of Theliosu's soldier informed him that Teada was coming their way. T and Yukimura arrived at Leosu camp. They exchanged pleasantries with one another. Leosha veiled his plan to become a general that would conquer the whole land and forge a new era with his hands, and that was why he chose to ally with the opponent that would least want to fight. Teada told him that he didn't have a chance because he would be abandoned by Oda after he's done using him before. Even set his sights on conquest. Teada persuaded Lo to join their forces and neglect. Oda. Leosu said he couldn't do that as long as Oda asked him to guard east, and he would not withdraw from there even if Oda betrayed him. Leosu moved closer to his soldiers and ordered them to prepare to attack. Lord Kenshin also asked his soldiers and Teada soldiers to attack as well. Sasuke reported to Teada that Oda wasn't attacking Asakura anymore, and he seemed as if he was diverting his force to them. Seeing that T's soldiers outnumbered them, Leosu called Honda Tatatu the strongest in the wearing states, and their gate was opened for him to come out. Tatatu flew into the sky, and when he landed, Leosu climbed on him. Nakanetsugawa was Sui's first squadron decided he was going to defeat Tatatu on his own. He attacked Tatatu, but Tatatu raised his weapon, and Nai landed in the forest. Tatatu defeated all the soldiers that confronted him. Date and his troops encountered Nagamas, and his troops Nagamas threatened to smite Date in the name of righteousness. Ki knew he was the brother-in-law of Oda and assumed Oda must have sent him there. He looked around to see if Oda was watching. From somewhere he sighted something and then ran towards the direction. The soldiers wondered where he was going and they thought he might be running away. Nagami confronted Date and his troops. Kajura told Date to leave the soldiers for them while he battled with Nagami. Nagami and Date battled with each other. Mitsuha asked Oda to take a look at how Nagase was driving away Date for him. Oda asked Mitsui what happened to the rifle squad that was supposed to be sent to Leomitsu. Said he had made arrangements for them to provide support from behind Nagami's force because they needed a stronger defense against Date's mobility. Tatatu kept attacking the soldiers. Lu assured them that Oda's rifle squad would arrive soon. Yukimura came and also dueled with Tatatu, and Yukimura was able to stop Tatatu attack Sasuke, and Taka also joined him in attacking Tatatu. Date and Nagase battle becomes more intense as they release flame dust, and Ball of Light. Date also use his claws to fight him, and Nagase vowed he would not retreat even if he must die. Lord Kisen followed Ki and stopped him from going. Further, Keshin asked if he was planning to approach the Demon King Oda in the name of the Mida clan to convince him. He told him his plan was imperfect. Ki told him he wouldn't know unless he tried. Kisen told him Oda was a born demon. He then brought out his sword and said he was going to stop Ki because he can't allow him to head towards his death. Ichi begged his brother to spare Nagase and not kill him. Oda accused Mitsuhide of going overboard, and he left the scene. Mitsuhide told Ichi that she still had time. Date and Nagami were still fighting. Ichi ran towards Nagase and asked him. Torun Mitsuhide, who was behind her, laughed, ordered his soldiers to shoot Nagase. They kept shooting until he fell down, and Ichi simply stared at him. Ichi moved close to where Nagase was lying, and she kept calling out his name. Nagami, in his state still, told her she wasn't supposed to be there because it was a battlefield. Mitsuhide came close to them and said Ichi had done a good job even though she failed to complete any mission that was set for her by Oda, but in the end, they achieved the desired result. Having Ichimari into the AAI clan was basically just to lay the foundation for Oda's attack against the Asakura clan. Ichi was also asked to bewitch Nagamas so that this military capabilities would be weakened, and that was her original mission. But Ichi did not achieve any of it because she fell in love with Nagama-san and wasn't able to reveal her actual motives and the secret mission Oda gave. Her Nagase asked Ichi if she was lying to him all this, while Ichi began to weep and apologized, blaming herself for the situation. Nagase understood that she was forced to do things against her will and asked her to stop crying. He asked her to tell him he wasn't wrong before he died, after Ichi had said that he gave up the ghost. Ichi cried bitterly, but Mitsulord and made fun of her date, picked up Nagami helmet and gave it to Keiju Hemoved closer to Mitsui angrily and asked if the demon and king was the one behind it. They used Nagami as a shield to finish him alongside Asakura, their enemies, and this got Date really pissed up. Mitsu proposed that they have a dueland. Then they began to fight fiercely. Ryosu soldiers reported to him that Oda had abandoned and tricked them, because the rifle squad they requested had yet to arrive. The soldier asked that they retreat so they wouldn't face the same fate as the AEI clan. Ryosu felt bad and reluctantly asked the soldiers to retreat Tatatu, then flew up into the sky and landed in the midst of Tida soldiers. Tida noticed Tatatu wished to have a fight with Yukimura, and then he left Yukimura with him. While he ordered other soldiers to follow him, Lord Kenshin and Ki continued to contend with each other. Lord Kenshin insisted that Ki mustn't go to the Demon King, but Ki said he wouldn't agree with what he said. He jumped on his horse and ran off immediately. Tida approached the Ryosu troops and Ryosu became scared. Yukimura and Tatatu were still battling. Yukimura commended Tatatu's strength and techniques and saw the reason why he was called the strongest. In the Waring States, Ryosu was determined to protect the Tokugawa clan at all costs, so he decided to join the Taka clan. Naime arrived on the mountainous reinforcements to the Ryosu clan, but was disappointed to hear him say he would join the Teada clan, and then she shot at him. Tida defended him, and then Nima descended from the mountain and began to shoot at them. She carried a large gun and shot the soldiers. Yukimura asked Tatatu to see what Naime had done to Ryosu soldiers, and then persuaded him to join his clan so they could defeat Oda together. Lo came riding on T-Horse and warned Tatatu to be careful, knew he may attack Tatatu, and when he saw the attack coming, he lifted Yukimura and threw him up into the sky. Tatatu was defeated and he fell on his knees. Suddenly, there was an explosion and there was commotion everywhere. Keiju Kameto Date while he fought Mitsuhide and told him to order a retreat. Mitsuhide soldiers also retreated and Ichi was still holding Nagama's corpse. Weeping Yukimura returned to his master Teada and told him it was Tatatu that rescued him from this surprise attack. He then asked Teada why the Oda planned to eliminate them together with the Tokugawa clan, who were there. Aritaka explained to him that Oda's original intention for forming an alliance with them was to have a precaution against Tatatu's strength, similar to how he broke the firm alliance between the Azai clan and the Asakura clan in advance. In order to make use of them, he was planning to deceive the Tokugawa clan. Eventually, Ryosu said he was to be blamed for everything because he thought allying with the Demon King and borrowing his powers would make him win the battle. Hugh wept bitterly for losing Tatatu. Tida walked up to him and told him he didn't have just Tatatu because he had other loyal soldiers with him. Ryosu said he wished to fight together with Tada to defeat the Demon King. Tada ordered Yukimura to take the wounded soldiers to their place in Kai and provide assistance to them. Keiji returned back to Lord Kenshin. He watched the dead soldiers lying on the ground and wished there was a way to eradicate war completely. Lord Kenshin told him they could only deal with the Demon King with power. And then he asked Kai if he was willing to travel to the west so he could convince both Mori and Chuseok, which are surrounded by the Steto Inland Sea Key. Then arrived to go Yukimura hurried after Date and his troops and asked them to go with them to Kai Kajurumoved, close to Date, and asked him to let them accept T's offer. Because they had a lot of casualties, Date gave no answer, and then surprisingly he fell off his horse. Kajuru rushed to him and Yukimura also caught up with them. Kajuru saw that Date had been wounded while he fought. Mitsuhi was taken. Takai and Keiju stayed with him. Mitsuhi reported back to Oda. Oda blamed him for taking actions on his own without consulting him first, and also for letting Date go. Oda asked him to come closer and he poured water on his head and told him he didn't allow him to do as he pleased. He warned him that if such happened again, he was going to bathe in his own blood. Mitsuya apologized to Oda with a fierce look on his face. Kasuga came to meet Lord Kenshin and asked him why he didn't have a chat with Tiada to tell him how much he desired him. Kenshin told her that they had to defeat the Demon King first, and then the chat with Tiada could follow. Kasuga sensed something in the forest, and she immediately flew there. There she found Sasuke waiting for her. Cook relayed the message to Keida sent to her that she should always be by Kenshin's side and not leave him, even if he ordered her to scout for him. He added that he would investigate what the Demon King was up to with his subordinates and update her whole. She stayed there to protect her master. Suddenly they saw a thick smoke from afar and Sasaki immediately rushed there to check what was going on. Yukimura watched Kajuru Ash trained outside all by himself. He walked close to him and told him he heard strange voices from the west and the ninja squadron under his command had gone to investigate it. Yukimura tried to comfort Kajuru and told him not to blame himself for Date's injury. Kajuru recalled how Mitsu fought with Date, and he called him a bastard for treating battle as if it was a game. He then reasoned that Mitsui might be defying the Demon King, although he appeared to be his vassal. Sasuke then arrived at the scene with an injured soldier. The soldier told them that the other soldiers with him had been captured. He flashed back to how he and the other soldiers voluntarily take over the night guard from the T soldiers and offer them rice balls. The Tekita soldiers allowed them to take over, and suddenly they saw a strange man approach them. He released a bomb which exploded back to the present. Kajuru asked the other soldiers where Sasuke replied to him that they had been taken away, and gave Yukimura a letter that was left there. In the letter the enemy stated that they wanted the shieldless armor of Tiada and the 6 swords of Date in exchange for the captives. On top of that, the deadline they gave was the next day. When Kajuru saw the letter, he asked Yukimura what the shieldless armor was. Yukimura told him it is the heirloom of the Tiada clan, and that the weapon bonds their clan and supports their unwavering will. It was literally a treasure that was impen Pablino. Matter the weapon used. On the other hand, it could also help someone recover from severe injury if the person is laid down in the presence of the armor, and that was why they put Date there. Kajuru asked Yukimura not to tell Tada about, and also not to let Date hear about it while he was still speaking. Date appeared behind them and asked Yukimura for his horse. Date said he would go to take back his guys held hostage by Matsunaga. Hisahide, the villain of the Wearing States. Kajuru tried to stop him, but he insisted he would go. Seeing that he was determined, Kajuru drew out his sword and told him he was more important than the guys held hostage. Date asked Kajuru to come with him and protect his back like he always does. Kajuru said he wouldn't allow him to go in his wounded state even if he lost his life. The both of them had a fight and Keiju hit him on his wounded part. Then he fell and lost consciousness. Keiju carried Date's 6 swords and left for Matsunaga Place to rescue. The soldiers. Takada summoned Yukimura and told him he heard all that happened. He then asked him why he let Kajuru went alone. He said the enemy might come for them if he left and might possibly be after his master T's life. Tida gave him a punch and he broke into the ground. Tida told him he should have taken the armor and gone with Kajuru without saying a word. Yukimura told his master that he wouldn't hand over the armor even if it was Sasuke, their ninja, that was held hostage. He added that here called that he saw the fiery heart he'd inspired in him in Kiju Teada. Told him that was why he should take the shieldless armor to him and make sure he saves the date hostages and brings the armor back when Kajuru arrived at Matsunaga. Place he saw 3 fearful soldiers awaiting him. Yukimura also got on his horse and followed Kajaru. Sasuke also followed him from behind. The soldiers asked Kajuru to deliver the swords, and they would deliver the hostages to him after Kajuru dropped the swords and decided to fight the soldiers. Matsunaga was seen with the hostages. He said he really wished for a long time that he would lay his hands on date swords and T's shieldless armor. He told the hostages that there's no way Tida would offer the armor in order to save them. One of the hostages asked him to kill them if he wanted, because they were prepared to die any time. Matsunaga informed them that Kajuru had come to rescue them. Yukimura and Sasuke too had arrived at Matsunaga territory with the shieldless armor. Kaju was still fighting the 3 soldiers, and he was getting tired already. The soldiers ran towards him to strike him, but he dodged them. At last Kiju was able to defeat these soldiers. Kiju now faced Matsunaga. Matsunaga said he thought he would be brought as a corpse to him, but it looked like he had underestimated him. One of the hostages told him not to sacrifice their master's sword because of them. Kajuru assured them he would end everything soon, and so they should wait. While Matsunaga couldn't believe, Kajuru actually brought the sword. Kajuru threw the swords to Matsunaga and asked him to duel with him in exchange that, if he won, he would return the hostages and swords to him. Matsunaga told him he was not open to negotiation unless he had both treasures. Yukimura hurried towards them with the armor in his backpack. He put it down and opened it for him to see. He brought it out and asked Matsunaga to inspect it. Matsunaga was happy. He was able to obtain the treasures. Sasuke was seen hiding behind Matsunaga, but he wasn't aware. Matsunaga snapped his fingers, and there was fire behind him, which later consumed everywhere. Date had woken up, and he saw Takada standing at the entrance. Date realized that Kajuru had gone to save the soldiers, and had taken his sword. Stater told him that eventually, the young Onis would be the ones to end the warring states and begin a new era. He added that Matsunaga Hisahide was the only general who confronted Oda and survived, and so he was made the Demon King's subordinate. Date said Oda must have used Matsunaga to divert their attention by holding the soldiers hostage. Taita answered that he didn't think so because Matsunaga would not obey Oda, and that Matsunaga was probably trying to keep a rare little cuckoo in a cage. To then stood up and asked Date to rest because they would be needing him. Matsunaga moved close to the armor and then asked Keiju to leave since the hostages he came to rescue were no longer around. Keiju was emitting light, and then he moved closer to Matsunaga. Matsunaga drew out his sword and many soldiers assembled from nowhere, and 3 explosives. Yukimura and Karu fought and then they faced Matsunaga. Yukimura hurried towards him, but an explosive was thrown at him. Luckily, SAS came in time and rescued him. Karu at last was able to defeat Matsunaga, and he was set ablaze. Sasuke Yukimura also watched as he burned down. The 3 soldiers that were held hostage came out of the fire and bowed before Kiju. Nime reported to Oda that Matsunaga was dead. Oda asked her what Mitsuhide was doing, and she told him he was finalizing the arrangements to shatter the alliance of the eastern countries, and he was going to start with Leosu. Kajuru returned to Kai and met his master Date, and he was relieved he had recovered. He asked if Kajuru would like to duel with him again, but Kajuru told him he's ready to receive any punishment for pointing his sword at him after they defeated the Demon King. Date pointed his sword at his neck and told him to stop, saying, Teada gave a new spear to Yukimura as a gift. Teada then asked him to tell him what he learned from the previous incident. Yukimura told him that after fighting with Matsunaga, he remembered the lesson he taught him, that people are very important and are treasures. Teada moved close to him and patted his head. He asked him what he was going to do after the Demon King had been defeated. Yukimura said he would guide people to join together to form a strong stone wall. Teada was quite happy. With him, Sasuke came to report to Teada that Lisu and his soldiers had perished, so informed them that Mitsu killed Lisu since he officially declared his intent to annul his alliance with Oda Yukimura felt so bad when he heard it, and here called how much he wept when he lost. Tatu then also realized that Oda had planned to send his main force to suppress Kushu, while he used the others as assassins and sent them after them. Sasuke said he had sent envoys to Lord Kenshin to deliver the news. Lord Kenshin watched the sky as smoke radiated in it. He said the Demon King must have taken over the island of Kushu. Suddenly, Kasuga stood and covered him. A lady was seen, dressed in black, and was sitting in the room. Kasuga asked who she was, and she told him. She was a ninja from T's force. She asked that she wanted to talk with Lord Kenshin in private. Kasuga refused, but she showed her an emblem to confirm his identity. Kenshin entered. While Kasuga stayed outside, the stranger ninja reported that Lisu was killed because he formed an alliance with the Teada clan. She stood up and pointed a gun at Kenshin, saying it was now his turn. Kasuga broke in and found out Kenshin was being attacked. The ninja flew out, and then they realized it was Noheim, disguised as a ninja from Teada. Kasuga wanted to go after her, but Kenshin stopped her. Him began to shoot, but Kenshin came behind her and destroyed his gun. Kasuga got hold of her. The envoys from Suk had arrived and they stood with Kenshin. However, Morirameru, the archer of Oda, accompanied Noheim, and he shot at Kenshin, and the arrows struck the envoys. Kasuga sensed that Kenshin would be his next target, and then she released Noheim to rescue him. But it was late, because the arrow had already hit Kenshin's leg. Kuga covered Kenshin when Noheim was about to shoot him, but Kenshin dragged her away, and the bullet hit him severally. There was heavy rain. Yukimura was training in the rain, and Suk came to him to inform him that he was going to Lord Kenshin's place, because he felt uneasy. Even after sending 3 men there, one of the soldiers came to report to Teada that the Dragon King's dike was collapsing and the water level had risen, which could lead to the nearby villages and fields being submerged. The Dragon King's dike was a huge stone structure built where the flow of 2 nations joined together, and it helped to prevent the villages of Kai from being submerged. Taita himself spent years building the structure. Taita came to check the structure, and the villagers reported to him that someone must have tampered with the structure. Taita told them they must together do everything possible to prevent it from collapsing. They struggled to block the flow, but it was working and the rain didn't stop. After a while, they saw Mitsuhide standing on the mountain. He descended from Thera. Mitsuhide attacked Taka at that moment. Tida and Date's soldiers arrived at the scene and brought materials they would use to strengthen the dike. Surprisingly, he saw his master dueling with Mitsu. T asked him to go and strengthen the dike with the soldiers' day. And Kajuru also arrived and saw Teada having a duel with Mitsu. Mitsu began to radiate so much bright light. He wielded his sword, and the structure broke down, making everyone submerged in water. Mitsu struck Tida with his sword, and he sustained an injury. Tida began to sink inside the water, and Yukimura tried to save him. Date and Karu decided to have a fight with Mitsu, but he jumped on his horse and left, saying he had just savored the taste of Tida, and so he didn't want to overrate his body, and besides, both of them had a role to play for him. Then he left. Sesuk encountered Kasuga on his way to Lord Kenshin's place. Kasuga told him, Lord Kenshin narrowly managed to escape Death and he can no longer fight. On the battlefield, she flashed back to when Kenshin on his sickbed asked her to go to Kai because Teada might be in danger, and so she had to go inform him immediately. Sasuke was informed that the envoys he sent were killed at Kenshin's place. Kasuga blamed herself for not seeing through Nim's disguise and was suitable to protect Kenshin. She told Suk that Teada might be in danger at that moment. Kasuga stood up to return to Lord Kenshin. Sasuke warned her not to think of attacking the Demon King, to take revenge because he's a dangerous man, but Kasuga insisted she would since she was his ninja. Sasuke gave her a slap and told her Kenshin would not want her to get revenge. Sasuke gave her a whistle and told her to use it anytime she's in danger. Yukimura was able to get Teed out of the water, but he had lost consciousness. The Demon King entered his castle and met his sister Ecchi lying on the floor. Ichi asked him why he was destroying everything and killing people. Oda got pissed up and threw a spear. He told her that she should either work for him or she would die there. Sue came in at that moment and he began to praise him. Oda told him it's useless to flatter him and asked him to report what he had done. He told him he had eliminated Lisu for betraying their alliance. In addition, he had killed Tida, the Tiger of Kai, and finally, Ranmaru and Nim had slain Lord Kenshinas. A result, the soldiers of each clan are on the lowest end of the spectrum and have lost their fighting spirit and morale. On top of that, they will no longer have any ties with the other countries. In addition, there isn't any warrior left who has the capability to manage them. He asked of Date the one-eyed dragon, and he told him he's yet to recover from his gunshot wound and was currently bedridden. He said his next step was to lead their army and launch separate attacks to gain control of Tadawugi and Dat's lands. Then Oda should go attack Mori and Chuseok. Kabodasked Mitsu to do as he wished. Date decided to go attack Oda all by himself and asked that his army be disbanded. The soldiers insisted that they would follow him, but Date told them the battle wasn't a party that he was going to enjoy with. The Yukimura came to him and persuaded him not to disband his loyal soldiers, but Date called him a dumbass who gave up easily, and then he pushed him away. Kajuru told them to leave Date since he'd already decided. Yukimura said he couldn't go with him because he couldn't leave his master all by himself. Kajuru asked him not to underestimate Tida. He entered the room where Tida was and removed the cloth he was covered with. Teda, even in his unconscious state, was holding his fist. Seeing that Yukimura decided to follow Date to battle with Oda, Date assured him both of them were going to enjoy the last party by cutting off Oda's head with their hands. Nagamas appeared to Ichi. Nagami asked her how she felt presently, and she said she wanted to be by Nagama's side again. Nagase told her that she had been sticking at Oda's side because she wanted to achieve what other warriors didn't achieve. He asked her to believe in it and face Oda herself, because she's the only one who could do it. Nagami then disappeared. Keiju asked Date soldiers to prepare to set off to meet Date on the battlefield. When they got outside, they saw that Kaju had prepared many other soldiers to join them in the battle. The other soldiers were really excited that they were having new soldiers to join them. Then they all headed to the battlefield. Date and Yukimura arrived at Oda's territory. His soldiers hurried out to attack them. They were looking for Odi and his cronies, and they barged into different rooms. Mitsu sensed their arrival, but was surprised. It's just the two of them that came. Date and Yukimura entered a building, and they knew they'd been tricked. Mitsu had assembled the soldiers and were ready to attack Mitsukame into the room. Date and Yukimura, where Mitsu realized he had been tricked as well. The soldiers fired their arrows off fire at the building where Data Yukimura and Mitsuhide were, and the building was set ablaze. Then they realized Oda had tricked them all, so they could kill each other there, in the room. Noem Aprechi Apri Oda for granting her the permission to do as she will, and also for allowing her to punish Mitsu for deceiving him. Mitsu had also got to know that Nima was the one that planned his elimination. Date asked Mitsu if he intended to take over the lands, but he told him he had no interest in the lands. All he desired was to see Oda cry and plead for his life, while he extracted his last breath with his hands. Date and Yukimura were amazed that Oda and Mitsuhide were aiming to kill each other. The trio began to battle with one another. Kasuga was brought out from underground tied with rope before Oda and the rest. She was caught when she was trying to enter Oda's territory. Nahime said he had kept her for Ichi's sake, and she asked Nim to kill her if she was willing to work for Oda. Ichi picked up a spear to kill Kasuga, but she couldn't do it. Nim brought her gun to shoot her, but Kasuga was able to lose the rope used to tie her and collected the spear from her. Kuga unexpectedly carried Ichi with her and flew out of the room. Kuga asked if Ichi would be willing to go with her, but she refused, saying she had made a promise to Nagamas. Kasuga left her and flew. Kasuga was then surrounded by Oda's soldiers. And then she remembered the whistle Sesuk gave her. She blew the whistle, and after a while there was an explosion and a parachute came into her hand. which helped her escape the battle between Mitsuhide and Date, and Yukimura Ranmaru. Also joined the scene to help Mitsui out Date was able to defeat Ranmaru, and he ran away. The battle was still ongoing between Yukimura and Mitsuhide, and it had become more intense. Kajuru came in and reported to them that the Demon King was now in Mount Azuchi. According to Kasuga from there, Oda was making final preparations for his campaign to spread militarism across the land. Kajuru asked Date and Yukimura to go lead the soldiers there while he continued to duel with Mitsu. Ichi asked Naime to let her see her brother again. Naime pointed a gun at Ichi's head. The soldiers of Teada and Date headed to Azuchi Mountain where Oda was Yukimura reminded Date how he had disbanded his soldiers and wanted to go attack Oda alone. Date told him he didn't like leading a large army, but it isn't that bad to get together for an extravagant one-night party. Nim pointed a gun at Ichi's head. Then she fell down, and suddenly strange and scary. Hands appeared around her and grabbed Nimshand, Karu, and Mitsu continued fighting. Each other Ranmaru returned, picked up a sword, and entered the room where they were. He felt so hot when he entered, as the room was still burning with fire and he was already feeling weak. Mitsuhide moved close to him and lifted him up with his spear. Kiju moved close to them, and he freed Ranmaru from him. Mitsu jumped up, and then the rope on his neck hung on the spear that was already attached to the wall. Keiju left him, and the fire consumed him completely. Together with the building, Kajuru found Ranmaru outside, and then he gave him money. He told him they were going to destroy Oda, and so he should find a lord to offer for his service to, so he could survive on his own strength. Ichi regained her consciousness and found out that Naime had also fainted. Ichi began to blame herself for killing her date, and others had arrived at Oda's place as they waited outside. Suddenly, arrows of fire were shot towards them. They entered the building with their soldiers. Oda also commanded his soldiers to go and confront them. The battle then began between Oda's soldiers and Date and Yukimura's soldiers. Ichi came to report to Oda that she had killed Nem unknowingly, but Oda seemed to care less about her. Ichi picked up a spear and told Oda that she didn't want to kill him but wanted him to realize his errors. Oda told her she had no option but to cut him down. Ichi dropped the spear and began to weep. Again she moved close to her brother, but Oda picked her gun and shot down Ichi Yukimura. And Date had arrived at the scene, and they were shocked that Oda could kill his own sister. The battle between Oda, Date, and Yukimura was about to begin. But Date asked Oda who he was, because to him he looked nothing less than a monster. Oda told him he was the Demon King, who came from the sixth heaven. They fought each other using different fighting techniques, and the battle was so intense. Date injury. He was opened again, and Oda got hold of him. He said he was going to gouge out his second eye. Surprisingly, Tatatu was seen in the sky firing at the Oda's soldiers. He landed where Date and Yukimura were fighting Oda, and he saw that Oda was holding Date. On his neck, Oda was surprised to see that Tatatu hadn't died, and he began to shoot him severally. At last, he was able to destroy Tatatu. Date decided to perform his last attack. Fortunately, Ki arrived with the Murray and Chok soldiers, and they also joined in. Attacking Oda Lord Enyomatsu Shuspand also came for the final battle against Oda Date, and Yukimura unrelentingly continued to strike Oda until they were able to defeat him. The soldiers jubilated and celebrated their victory for defeating Oda. According to the narrator, after the destruction of Oda clan, the world again was in battle. The leaders of the various countries have, once again, risen up to battle for control over the lands. After Oda's death, the desperate king Toyotomi Hiyoshi, along with his strategist Takanaka, Hanbei sought world domination, and once again, the land was plunged into turmoil, with Date set on making a comeback, having been once defeated by the surprising power of the Toyotomi heading for Osaka and Yukimura, setting out an expedition to Saigoku on Shan's orders. Having caught wind of Toyotomi plot, they were both moving to defeat the Toyotomi. Though their path may have differed, they both walked the paths they believed in, overcoming trial after trial. And then just as the Toyotomi army headed to complete its dominion of the land, Morimoto Nari, who had formed an alliance with The Toyotomi rose in rebellion and Yukimura, who allied with the Satsuma army, had missed. The chaos took him down. Meanwhile, in Odawara, Date brought his fight to the death with Toyotomi to a close, managing a narrow victory, and with that it seemed like these turbulent times were coming to an end. But the destruction of the Toyotomi heralded in a third wave of turmoil. Two of Toyotomi's subordinates, Tokugawa Ieyasu, aimed to unify the nation with heartfelt bonds, and Ishida Mitsunari, hunting down Dateto, avenged Toyotomi. Thus, with the entangled feelings of Date, Yukimura, and other warlords decided to have a fight. Then the greatest battle of the Warring States era was about to explode, with the defeat of the Oda and the end of the Toyotomi era. Countless wars brought forth untold sorrow and regret, and thata times transformed the souls of those left behind into a hellfire of carnage. Their fate, which ought to have been meager warp, seized with uncertainty. Here is one such soul, Ishida, who was still lamenting the death of Toyotomi, and was burdened with the heart of vengeance. Ishida slain Date's soldiers, without allowing them to beg for their lives. Two soldiers from the USU reported to their leader, Lord Mami, known as the Fox of US, that their enemy was not a great one. Asked what they meant by that, and they replied that their enemy was just a single man seeing a cedar approaching them. Mami said that he thought it was a whole army, not knowing it's just a skinny little boy. When he got close to him, he called his boy and said that he knew all about him. He offered him a cup of tea leaves and asked that they should be friends, even though he never knew who he was. He thought he wouldn't want to do anything. Reckless, knowing he was at Tsuchin. Overwhelming disadvantage of being alone, Ishida drew out his sword and pointed it at his neck, thus making the cups of tea fall off his hands. Ishida said he was going to kill him, because those who stood in his way were as guilty as Date, who killed Toyotomi. Mami stylishly begged for his life, but Ishida was not moved, as he was about to slay Mami. Date's voice was heard, and has said he was the one that Ishida was actually after. When Ishida turned his face, he saw Date on the mountain. Date commended his spirit to avenge Toyotomi, and he called him Toyot. Tommy's leftover Mami quickly rushed to Date and told him he had been waiting for him. He told Ishida that Date was his bosom buddy button. The contrary, Date asked Ishida to do whatever he liked with Mami, while he waited for him. Something struck his neck, and he fell down. Ishida ignored Mami, and then he jumped to join Date on the mountain to have a duel with him. Ishida fought violently in the spirit of vengeance. Their battle released quite large amounts of lightning and flame. Even the earthquake Date's hit on, Ishida made him hit his head on the rock, but here summed the fight. Immediately Date proposed that they fought with the land as the prize for whoever won. But Ishida decided he wasn't interested in the land. All he desired was to end his sorry life and then continue the duel. Date jumped on his horse and told him if he wanted to mourn Toyotomi that badly, he should go cry at his grave. Date rode away on his horse while Ishida ran after him, screaming that he would never forgive him for his crime. Lord Kenshin of the Wugi clan devoted and entrusted his country Ichigo to Tida, Tiger of Kai, since he had already defeated him. He commanded his soldiers to trust and devote themselves to him. Tida lifted up his weapon and aimed at Kenshin. Kenshin fancied Kasuga, who was lying unconsciously in Sasuke's hands, and then he bid her farewell. As Tiada was about slaying Kenshin, surprisingly Lu, whom everyone thought had died, arrived at the scene. With Tatatu, the strongest in the Warring States, Ryosu came down and moved close to them. Ryosu was all grown up, and Tad observed that Ryosu revealed that he was there to convey his determination. To them, Lisu had firmly resolved to unify the land with the power of bonds. Ryosu said he was going to bring an end to the world, which those who believe in tomorrow cannot live to see it, and thus had removed his helmet and cast away his spear. He said he wanted Kenshin and Tida to bond so they could lend him their power. Tida told him that it's impossible unless he achieves it. Ryosu appreciated them and let, while Yukimura simply stared. Yukimura came to inform his master T-Ada that he would love to abandon his spears for the sake of tomorrow, just like Ryosu did. Tata commended him for that. With a heavy punch on his cheek, he told him he's now a true warrior and asked him to blaze a trail to tomorrow in his stead. He assured him that since he had learned All he needed to learn, he and Ryosu can achieve their aim together. Tiada and Yukimura then began to fight so seriously that they wrecked the whole place and sustained injuries. Surprisingly, Tiada fell off and Yukimura quickly moved close to him. T told him he had taught him all he needed to know, and so he entrusted the spirit of the tiger to him. After saying that, Tada gave up the ghost date, returned back to Kajuru and his troops. Kajuru asked him why he went off without mobilizing the troops. Date told him there was only one opponent. He climbed down his horse and, when he moved a little, his armor began to break and was bleeding from his head. Kajuru got hold of him and his troops were shocked. Date was seen training and was bandaged on his neck and hand here, called how he fought with Ishida and practiced with those memories. Kiju Kameto him and cautioned him not to move around in his state. He reported that he'd found who Ishida was. After invading their land, OSU, he led an army to attack a variety of places. He killed many soldiers and unarmed civilians. His attack had made other warlords filled with trepidation, and they feared and detest him, calling him Minister of Misfortune. Date vowed that he was going to beat up Ishida since he was the one that pissed him up. Keiju promised that he wouldn't allow him to go alone next time, as forces began to make secret maneuvers in response to the Ishida army. Ryosu Kian Chosokabe tried launching a full-blown walking tour about the country in order to convince the warlords of the states that it was not a day too soon to end the war. Torn Agileosu flashed back to when he and Ishida had a conversation since they were both Toyotomi subordinates. Ishida asked him why he refused to avenge Toyotomi. With him, Ryosu replied to him that Toyotomi was too concerned with power, and if not checked, he would have spread fires of war to the whole world, and even more people would die and fall into despair. Ishida got pissed up and attacked. Ryosu defended himself with bare hands, and he was injured. Ryosu tried talking Yida out of vengeance, but he declined and attacked Ryosu again, claiming Toyotomi was his everything. Suddenly there was an attack in the village. Strange hands were grabbing the villagers and killing them. Instantly, it was Ichi Oda's sister who was attacking them, whereas Mitsu was watching her from a forest as she killed the villagers. Otani, a magistrate and subordinate of Toyotomi, appeared behind him and revealed to him how much Ishida trusted him. Even though he wasn't working for his benefits, Mitsu had disguised as a priest and hid his name from Legatus Mitsu. Then said Ishida and Ichi would be an impeccable medium for him to his desire and the destruction he wished for, and Legatus, the boy with him, shall provide the finishing touches. Date soldiers found Ki on their way and he saw a letter with them. Ryosu had sent letters to all the warlords since all of them had refused to accept his bond appeal, so he had resolved to change his method to resort to force, but he would like them all once more. He therefore asked them to gather on the grounds of Esigahara in Mino. After Yukimura had read his own letter from Ryosu, he headed out to look for him with his soldiers. On his way, he encountered Date asked where he was going, and he told him he was going to meet Ryosu. Date told him he was also going to meet Ishida and asked Yukimura to finish Ryosu off. Yukimura told him he wasn't going to let Ryosu destroy him, but to confirm if he was Theon attacking other lands as if imitating Ada army, and also ask if Hetrali was the one who sent the letter, the both of them, then part ways. Date then remembered that he and Yukimura first fought on that mountain. Then Het proposed that they have a duel there to settle things. The both of them then began to fight vigorously while they were at it. Kai came in between them and caught their weapons in between his own sword. They both began to fight, Ki assisting him not to interfere in their battle. Ki showed them his superpower, and this made the both of them stop. Karogave date the letter from Ryosu, but he refused to read it and said he was going to find out what's going on. Once he got to Esigahara, like Yukimura told him, Ki told them that Ryosu and Chosokabe, how were running around Western Japan, at that moment should be rushing there themselves. The OSU soldiers gifted Datea, special weapon to fight Yesa, with Date collected it and promised to use it. Mitsu told Legatus that the generals had found out that the letter they figured out already, that he used Ryosu's name to write a fraudulent letter. Legatus wished for peace, and he thought Mitsu, as a disguised priest, would help out, but he said he couldn't. Legatus wept Bitterly, Ryosu arrived at Sigahara. Many soldiers had gathered, and he also saw Legatus. Their Ryosu apologized for using his name to write a fraudulent letter. Ryosu's Ed he understood he meant no harm. Ryosu then addressed the warlords and soldiers present, as if he was the actual sender of the letter. Keiji also joined the scene. Ryosu reminded them of how Oda and Toyotomi had fallen through wars and battles. Because they rely on might alone, seconded him and said they should know. They are physically strong because they're expected to protect their loved ones, and so they could rescue their hometown. Yukimura also came out to support them, saying that they need to carry the heart of a warrior and go with what Lisu and Ki had said. Lisu continued saying, they should protect the bonds they have at that moment and form new bonds with those unknown to them and those who were their enemies in the past. The warlords then began to reason what they were, saying date, then reminded them that they had to first find out who's been attacking people all over the place. And when they all looked up, they saw Ishida standing on the mountain. Ryosu welcomed him and told him they've been waiting for him so they could have a peaceful talk. He said he didn't want to get involved because no matter what he says, it would never erase the resentment and hatred he had towards those who stole his joy away from him. His army emerged from behind and ran towards the other army. The warlords from other nations thought that Lisu had collided with Ishida to fool them. Ki tried to convince them, but the Ishida army was already attacking them. Mori Modari came and he convinced the people that bonds can never be achieved by men, since men were creatures that must quarrel and then encourage the warlords to fight against. Own another so one of them would be the conqueror of the land. The soldiers began to battle with one another. Each of them wanted to become the conqueror of Thailand Yukimura, and Ki became troubled and confused. Ki and Ryosu jumped into the battlefield and began running, helter-skelter. Otani joined Ishida on the mountain, and they were impressed on how Mori had helped them raise the fighting spirit in the warlords. Again, Suk reported to Yukimura, while on the battlefield, that their defenses were at their limit, and so he had to make a critical decision. At that point, Yukimura watched how the battle was ongoing and he was confused about the decision to make. Yukimura decided to fight the battle with his army and ordered them to continue to attack. Keiji also prepared to have a contest of strength with them all. Ishida and Date faced each other again, and Ishida asked him how he murdered Toyotomi. Date replied that he had killed many innocent dudes because of his grudge against him. Date and Ishida began to fight with each other. Mitsuhide came into view dressed like a priest. Otani told him Moore's participation was quite helpful, even though he was unaware that his surprise attack had lent them a hand. Seeing Ishida's feelings of resentment towards those that had forgotten Toyotomi and the pure and unselfish will of Ryosu, who wished for peace throughout the land of the rising sun, he concluded they were going to achieve their desires through the situation. Mitsui said he only needed to stir up his now puppet, the Demon King's sister lady, Ichi was standing in the middle of the battle, staring at the soldiers, and the soldiers wondered what was wrong with her. Suddenly a strange hand that usually stayed around Ichi sprouted out from a dead soldier's belly, and in a twinkle of an eye, it had begun appearing in all the dead soldiers' belly. Date and Asida continued to fight energetically. Otani commented that the view of the battle must be the greatest sight for those eyes that are unforgiving. Legatus was worried if the battle could truly bring about peace, but he himself was hiding under the roof. Chosak Cab also arrived at the battlefield and was screaming Moore's name, claiming he had caused Rukasan tried to profit. While others fought, Josek Cab said he was going to return the land of Aki, his hometown, to him for a bit, so he could beat him up right there and take it back again. Maya promised him that he would kill him, and after he had gone, he would make Aki land his permanently. Then the both of them, two, began to battle, also Date and Ishidawa still fighting. Date stopped to ask him what he was going to be doing after he got his revenge. Ishida ignored him and prepared to fight them more, and this time, with full force and energy, he aimed at Date's neck, and he broke the armor on his neck. Date retaliated and fought him with full force and energy, too, and thus making Ishida flew into the sky, and surprisingly, a crystal called Grim Reaper appeared that pee him up in the sky, that he couldn't move anymore. Then Date realized that Ishida had died before, and so he was brandishing power to survive through the Grim Reaper. Date broke the Grim Reaper, and everyone watched the flame that exploded from it in great amazement. Date was the first to land back to the battlefield. Then Lisu and Ishida landed too. Lisu was the one that saved Ishida. Lisu continued to persuade Ishida even at that state that he should let go of his hatred and resentment. Headed that his resentment could be healed with bonds. Ishida wouldn't listen to Anto from Lisu, as he was determined to take revenge of his master, Toyotomi. The both of them then lost consciousness. The whole place suddenly became dark. Ecchi was seen, and the strange hands began to appear around her. Legatus was so afraid when he saw this from where he was hiding. The strange black hands began to attack the soldiers. Legate stood up and announced to the soldiers that they should watch out for the black strange hands and not touch them. Mitsu said he was saying unnecessary things. Legate stood on the bridge and reminded them of Takada's intentions of making everyone's hearts as one and had sacrificed almost all he had for that. The soldiers continued to struggle with these strange black hands. But Mitsu laughed at him, saying it was too late for Legatus. Yukimura observed that he had seen those strange black hands before, and it was from Lady Ecchi. The bridge Legatus was standing on suddenly broke, and he fell into the river. Then there was explosion and commotion everywhere that all the warlords and soldiers became confused. A strange creature then appeared to everyone's greatest surprise. Oda came into view. He had awakened and revived. He then ordered everyone to sub-MIT and bow down to him. Oda started to shoot his gun, and the strange black hands were still killing the soldiers. Yukimura couldn't believe his eyes to have seen Oda Nobunaga, that they defeated Long Eiga right in front of his eyes. Then Oda sent a great attack everywhere, and the soldiers were terrified to see the astonishing power of Oda Nobunaga that was incomparable to his former incarnation, the sediment absorbed by the Devil Queen's black hands. From the dead soldiers had become the Demon's King. New flesh and blood. Ishida faced Oda and told him he was going to destroy the world. Toyotomi, his master, had dreamt and hoped to rule Ru before he died. Ishida vowed he would not allow him to efface the world. Oda shot him and continued to shoot him until he landed on the mountain. Date and Kujuru too then began to attack Oda Nobunaga. Sasuke, T's ninja, and Yukimura, the young tiger too, joined the attack. Lisu and Ki were not left out. They too faced Oda Nobunaga to attack him. Now the battle called Thalas Party began in a vigorous way. Oda dodged all their attacks and made all of them land on their back. Ishida moved close to Oda to attack him, but Otani was attacking from behind. Ishida was shocked to see Otani there. Otani faced Oda Nobunaga and attacked him with full force, but Oda defeated him. In the end, Ishida rushed towards him. Ki and Theris then discover that Oda was yet fully resurrected, and his roots were the countless black strange hands they were seeing. They then decided to make another attempt at attacking Oda again. Yukimura told Sasuke that he had entrusted the Taira army to him. Funny enough, in that situation, Sasuke was still asking Yukimura if he would be getting a salary for that. Date, Ki, Lisu, and Yukimura moved close to Oda, and they all were willing to sacrifice even their lives to see the end of Oda. The whole place became intense with bright and thick flames. Each of them used different fighting techniques to confront Oda. Theonid Dragon attacked Oda heavily, and he fell off the ground. Mitsu was seen walking towards Ecchi, who was already laying helplessly on the ground. Oda rose up again and said he would not perish, since he had perished once before when Mitsu got to Ecchi. He appreciated him for fulfilling her role. The both of them then attempted to have a duel. Mitsu asked Ecchi if he was out of alignment, and she told her he was. Mitsu suddenly fell off the cliff, and the strange black hands ate him up. Ishida aimed at Oda with a sword in his mouth, but Oda defeated him. Oda began to dissolve, and Nagami appeared to Ecchi and told her that the time to atone was now, and she was the only one that could do it. He gave her a flower and then disappeared. Ecchi moved close to Oda, and the men recognized her. Ecchi told her brother Odato, "Let them go to sleep." and she promised she would always be with her. Oda continued to dissolve, and then everywhere was wrecked. Then Tatatu and Legatus came into view. Thankfully, there was a new dawn, and the day was brightened again. Ishida still insisted on avenging his master. Toyotomi Date asked him to bring it on so he could have double fun. Ishida turned to Ki and told him he had a favor to ask of him. Ka promised to do what he could to help him. He said one day he would like him to tell him stories about Lord Toyotomi that he did not know. Kei assured him he would do that for him any time he wanted. Yukimura told Lisu that he was really the one that deserves to succeed the spirit of the tiger in posterity. Lisu told him Tita was his mentor in spirit, and he revered him so much. But Yukimura was different because he had bonds with that which was thicker and hotter than blood. Lisu told Ishida that he hoped that someday he would rule over the country with him, with the power of bonds, to succeed the wishes of someone you love dearly is also as important as a bond. Key said he would like to duel with Ishida so they could settle things. Date stood up and asked Yukimura to let them treat themselves to their long-awaited party. Yukimura accepted the challenge, announced to everybody that they should have one last genuinely big fight, while they decide the winners and losers. With no hard feelings, Mori and Chosakabe were still fighting the battle of the warlords, continued on without end. This brings this anime to the end, how unending the fight for power could be. Why do you think this battle continued on without end? Who would you have chosen to be the ruler if you were to choose one of the warlords? Drop your opinions at the comment section. Bye.